Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast. Hope you guys are having an amazing week. We are getting ready to gear up for this heat wave that is hitting the state of Illinois starting tomorrow. So, yeah, it's going to be Vegas temperatures, but with like 100% humidity. So, it's not going to feel great, especially when it's going to be like 95 degrees with 100% humidity. So, it's going to be a fucking nightmare. Let's put it that. And with this heat wave. So I am preparing myself for it. So, yes. Also, I want to say thank you for everybody that continues to listen to the podcast. Make sure you send this to a woman that needs to hear it. Subscribe to the show so that you get the latest and greatest when it comes to episodes that I put out. Okay. And make sure you follow on TikTok because I'm starting to gain a little bit of traction on TikTok. And this is the second page that I am growing because I've grown my first page. It's going to completely different niche. So, yeah, good stuff that is coming and a lot more content to come as well. Okay. So, also, I do have an awesome mini course that is an audio series. The Haunted Woman audio series is available for you. So, it's completely free. It's 5 episodes for you to dive in and start to do the work on yourself, regardless if you've been through divorce, heartbreak, ending to a relationship, just grief, whatever the case may be. This is an excellent way to start the journey of, reclaiming your identity and showing up as who the fuck you need to be. So make sure you check out the show notes for all the details on that. So let's get into today's episode. So today's episode, I am going to dive deep into the childhood wound showing up in your adult relationships. This one hits home so much because the childhood wound that I suffered with for the longest time, and it was for years, and probably why I had a lot of unhealthy relationships with men, and I would be cheated on and abandoned by men who were supposed to value, keep me safe, and love me in every aspect is because I had the father wound. So, as a child, my parents got divorced when I was very young, and my biological dad left when I was 6 months old. And throughout, the very short amount of time from a year old to 3 years old, which I don't really remember, he would come and I would spend time with my stepmother and my brothers who were still very young at the time. But in all, when my mother had remarried and decided to move to the state of Nevada, and he was just completely absent. And I remember just wanting to have that relationship with him and wondering why he didn't want to see me and wondering why he would never call me. And then every summer I would go to New York City to spend the summers with my grandmother, and I would always ask, and I would always, ask family members and wanting to see him, and he would just not show up. He would be there, and then he would just completely abandon and ghost, whatever the terms that they use today, and he just was not a part of my life. The thing is that he never took accountability as far as pretty much that, hey, I was wrong and I shouldn't have done that, and I'm accountable and I'm sorry, which would have made a whole difference. However, when you shift your blame and doing the whole victim blaming on, my mother, and saying, she was the reason, you need to step out of the box and really look at yourself and take a deep, deep dive and a deep look and saying, okay, where did I go wrong? What did I do? And why does she feel this way? Okay. My biological dad was absent for a lot of my life. I am 48 years old. He was never there. Not a birthday, not when I graduated high school, when I graduated college, when I got my first car, when I first got my driver's license, when I had all these accomplishments in life, he was not there. Like the birth of my first child, when I got married, things like that. He was not there and he was not present. And I always felt this neglect. I felt emotionally starved. I felt this desperation to be loved. I felt that if I tried to pull closer, and I was so anxious that he wouldn't abandon, but he like every relationship I've had was emotionally unavailable and cannot come to the terms to say, you know what, I was wrong and to change because he didn't like something about himself. And because now I hold up a mirror and saying, no, this is not what I'm tolerating. This is not what I want. And this is not how I'm doing things. So when you hold up a mirror to people, especially men, when you honor your standards, you honor your non negotiables, and you say that you are not going to fucking tolerate something, that just hits home for them. And that's why they run away. They say, this is not good. We're not, a match. We're not meant to be. It just wasn't going to work out. And I really don't want this. And they run away. And then you wonder why 5 months later they come back and say, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. And I was scared. So one of the things that usually keeps showing up is usually the father wound. So men who are emotionally unavailable. That means they have been broken by a prior relationship. They haven't done the healing work. Let me say something about healing work. What you are responsible as an individual, like you are responsible for your own things that you need to heal. Now, the person that creates space that you can be vulnerable with, that is emotionally safe and will hold your hand when you are just going through the fucking shit and saying, I got you, you can talk to me, and just listens, yes, they can heal parts of you that way. However, every individual is responsible for their own shit that they need to heal. My divorce and grieving the divorce, especially grieving somebody who's still alive and I still have to co-parent with, was one of the hardest things that I had to do when I got divorced 7 years ago. Okay. So that is my responsibility to heal because those are things that I cannot put on somebody because of what happened during my marriage. That shit is my responsibility and I don't need to carry any trauma into the next relationship that I choose to have. Perfect example is I felt just, I had to prove to be loved. Okay. And usually when you have the father wound or you have men who are emotionally unavailable, that's what shows up, that you have to prove yourself that you have to be loved. You have to prove yourself that I am good and I have good intentions, especially the fucking dating shit out there, nowadays. There's a lot of fucking piss in the pool. Okay. And there's a lot of broken people, especially on those apps. I personally am not on any of those apps and I haven't been for the last 2 years because they think that they can find greener grass and that, I want to have a lot of options. If this doesn't work out, I have this. The grass is greener where you're standing and where you're watering it. That's where the grass is greener, guys. Okay. And I know some men are going to listen to this podcast as well. Stop creating options for yourself and thinking that you have the wife sitting in front of you. Okay. And she has shown you by actions, not by words, that she creates space. She appreciates you. She gives you that vulnerability to talk to her, to share your deepest, darkest secrets. And you throw that shit away because of validation online. Your TikTok following is more important. And whoever's in your fucking DMs is who you're paying attention to because you have all these options. Okay. And then you go back to dating apps knowing that you haven't done any healing work, knowing that you haven't done the work that is required for you to grow, and you project your trauma to a new face. Okay. That is what keeps resurfacing if you don't do the work and the shadow work, the inner work to heal that fatherhood. Now, I have listed my non-negotiables anytime that I decide that I want to put myself back out there to date, which currently I'm not. And that's a personal choice. But I have created non-negotiables that are non-negotiable that I am not going to tolerate. Person that refuses to communicate, sorry, this can't work. Okay. Because communication is key to making sure that we understand each other on the same level. Okay. And there's understanding as far as what is going on. Okay. And also making sure that if I communicate my needs or if I feel that's something wrong, that it's me and you against the problem, not you and I against each other. Okay. And I value loyalty and honesty. Okay. And I value a lot of things in a relationship that are just common knowledge and bare fucking minimum. Communication is bare minimum. That is something that you should do. Okay. And it goes beyond texting. Okay. I'm sorry, but everybody's addicted to their phones. Texting can get misunderstood. I like phone calls and FaceTime. Hey, I'm Gen X. We were in the land of zero cell phones. So whenever you wanted to talk to somebody, either you had to go to their house or you had to call them on the phone. Okay. And now FaceTime is great because you can actually talk and see the person. Okay. I have non negotiables and standards. I am not going to lower myself to make somebody else feel better. I am not going to let a man devalue me or say, well, I can't give you this in a relationship. Okay, goodbye. Goodbye. Okay. I make sure that I'm very honest from the get go. Yes, if I'm going to pursue a serious relationship with you, it's going to end in marriage. And yes, I do have to figure out if we are compatible, if we are good together, if things work out to get to that stage. Absolutely. But ladies, you don't have to prove yourself to be loved. You have to love yourself enough that people will see that. You don't have to feel neglected. You don't have to be emotionally starved by men, okay? You don't have to compete to be loved. Listen, perfect story is that last year I was in a serious relationship, okay? And this is somebody that I still genuinely care about to this day. And I can genuinely care about somebody and not be with them or not communicate with them, right? Honestly, he was the most painful heartbreak that I had to just, grieve. I had to, heal from. It was the most painful thing I ever had to go through because I had feelings invested. There was, real genuine love there. And I felt so safe and secure with this person because he actually made me feel that way. He was actually one of the very few people in my entire lifetime that I actually felt like a woman, that I could actually be myself and I didn't have to think a million thoughts in my fucking brain. Okay. But the problem was he isn't healing from any of his traumas. He has a lot of traumas. And when I had met him 2 years ago, he had just left a serious relationship probably a month or two prior that I didn't find out until later on. So while we we were in a serious relationship last year and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he ended the relationship. And it was one of the most painful things that I had to really heal from. And I'm still healing from because it's one of the most painful things ever. So this person turning around and 2 months later start dating somebody else. But what I notice is that is his pattern because he hadn't healed from a relationship that broke him 3 years prior. When you don't do the healing work, that's why men are unavailable emotionally. And that's why they keep stringing you along. And that's why you get into these friends with benefits situationships. I prefer friends with benefits because I'm Gen X. Okay. And that's why you hold on to them so tightly and you get so anxious as fuck that you're like, okay, I need to do this so I can keep him. No, you don't. Let them go. Okay. If they want to go out and date somebody else, let them. If they want to sit there and say, oh, well, I have other options, let them. Guaranteed, because when they sit in their thoughts all alone and they have to face themselves because nobody else is there and the validation's over, the dopamine hit fades off. Trust me, everybody's mask comes off. Okay. They have to sit with themselves in the discomfort and they have to really look at themselves. They are going to regret that they ever did that to you. And I can tell you, he regretted that he hurt me the way he did. Because 5 months later, I get the, voice text, hey, which I did. Okay. And not to say that, I didn't accept the apology. I did. But I'm also honoring the non negotiables and the standards that I set for myself. That I'm not going to allow you to treat me a certain way when you continue the same pattern on you think another woman is better and you keep getting thrown in your face. It's not. So when they see a good person, men who are unavailable emotionally will just throw away a good woman. When you have those childhood wounds that show up, it's because you're suffering from the father wound because you were neglected or your father was emotionally unavailable or you had to prove yourself or you were abandoned. You were starved for love. You had to compete in order to be seen and heard. We don't have to do that because we need to just pour that love into ourselves because when you pour into yourself, other people notice. Other people notice, okay? And other people will see your value. A man that actually holds space for you and gives you that emotional safety and isn't going to allow another man to snatch you up because you are the one he wants and it's only you he sees, he's going to stop at nothing to get you. Okay. I have been pursued by lots of men over my lifetime. I got people in my DMs right now talking to themselves. But the thing is the only reason is because of my previous relationship that ended. Because they saw that it ended and then they thought, oh, maybe I have a chance. You don't. You had your chance. Your time was up a long time ago. So we have to make sure that we do the proper work for ourselves to heal our wounds, our traumas, so that we don't project that on to the next relationship. Healthy relationships are built on trust, communication, and making sure that your healing process continues. And that when you feel triggered or you feel like a trigger from a past trauma comes on, it's very healthy to communicate that to your husband. It's very healthy to just acknowledge and saying, this makes me feel this way. And this is, this is how I'm feeling. And I didn't like this and I need this. And it's very healthy to communicate because healthy relationships are hard. You have to wake up every day and choose that person over and over and over. And you may not like them. Okay. Because they didn't take out the trash or whatever it is, something fucking petty. But you choose each other over and over again and you communicate and you talk about things and have them deep conversations. That's why healthy relationships work. So that is the episode for today. So if you are interested in starting to break your patterns and recognize your father wound and start your path of reclaiming your identity, make sure you go to the show notes and get the Haunted Woman audio series. It's a really good audio series that I pack some things and some journal prompts in there to help you start to reclaim who the fuck you are. So thank you so much for joining me in this episode, and I will chat with you guys in the next episode.